What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Pat Outdoors. Hope you're having a great week. On the last video, we finally turned on this MX650 Enduro project. I installed the keaton 52 volt lithium battery pack with a 50 amp BMS, and it definitely sounds like it puts out a significant amount over stock. Maybe not as much as my 72 volt bike, but I'm excited to take this thing out. Unfortunately, we had to cut the build short on the last video because the power cut out in my apartment complex, but finally got power back. So let's continue wrapping this bike up because I am anxious to ride it. The battery and the controller are all fully wired and functional, but I want to clean up all of this stuff. Maybe just wire tie everything so it looks a lot cleaner inside the box. And then I have to modify the plastic side covers so it can accommodate the charge plug on the left side, and maybe drill a hole so I can have the USB port accessible in case I want to charge my phone. And then I'm going to make sure that the rear brake functions, so at least take this thing out for a test drive, put the body back together, and then hopefully my new brake adapter for the front comes in so we can finally wrap up this bike. All of the wires are now cleaned up and tucked in nicely inside the factory side covers. USB port just sticking out over here. I cut a little slot to leave some slack for the cable. Didn't want to cut that up if anything's moving. And rear brake, fully functional. So we should be pretty close to riding this. Only thing I have to do now is modify this side cover to accommodate this charge port. I'm going to take the stock charge port off. It looks like it's just a few small Phillips screws, and then I have to modify the hole a little bigger to fit this. Here's how the bike turned out with all the covers back on. The top of the plastic box has about a finger gap. It doesn't fully close all the way at the top since I added a lot of foam wrapped around the battery to make sure that it's fully secured and protected, since that's one of the most expensive things on this bike. So I'm not really upset about that. Here's the charge port. I can hook up to my charge cable for my phone if I need to. Pretty happy with how the charge port turned out, considering I did this with a pair of tin snips and just 2 self-tapping screws. I think it looks pretty good. I just got my new front brake caliper adapter in. This is meant to be fitted with a 180 millimeter front rotor, or you can mount it on the back of your bike and use it for 160 mil. This is the same exact shape as the 180 mil one adapter that I'm using for the front on my other bike. This is the Zoom caliper. This last Zoom front brake kit that I got came with a 160 millimeter front adapter, which is what I was thinking why it may have not worked with this adapter block that I got with my Alter Ego fork. But even with this new 180 millimeter adapter, I still don't see how there's gonna be enough clearance on the bottom side of the piston on the caliper. I'm gonna try orienting it a couple different ways to see if I can get it to work. So these 2 holes are to mount this adapter to the fork. And then these two holes are meant for mountain bike style brake adapter. So I'm just gonna try it in all different kind of configurations. So this is not gonna work. The bottom of the piston still hitting. This still not gonna work. It's too much of a distance. If I flip it the other way, still quite a bit of distance. And fourth configuration. This is probably the closest, but it still would take a massive amount of grinding, maybe even some spacers just to make this kind of work. I wasn't intending to purchase this to modify it heavily to make a mountain bike caliper work. I think I'm gonna have to just look at other options for brake calipers and rotor combinations that's gonna fit this type of fork. And for more fitment testing purposes, I found these two sleeves that happen to fit nice and snug through these two mounting holes on the fork. I wanted to see if the two holes on the adapter on the other side happen to line up. See if it's worth my time trying to modify it, and it does not. These two holes on the adapter are too close to each other, so they actually don't line up on the fork either. So it's off to other options. So the route that I decided I'm gonna go with for my front brake situation is actually upgrade it even more to one of those pit bike 2-piston style front calipers. Since this is a pit bike fork, I'm assuming it'll bolt right up. Fingers crossed, because I'm really trying to wrap this thing up so we can ride it. I also reached out to Keaton Scarlett to get one of his 192 or 195 millimeter front rotors that he's using on his RSF. Hoping that that's going to be a good combination. I'm expecting it to be a lot more braking power than what I have on my other bike, since it is a much larger front caliper and rotor combo. So that should definitely be a lot of braking power and solve the issues that I'm having. And I can't really put my front handguards on the handlebars until I have my brake situation finalized. I think the only other thing I want to take care of before taking this bike out on some dirt trails is actually slide my motor forward about 1/4 inch. Even though I don't have any sort of rubbing issues with the rear tire, I just want to make sure I have as much clearance as possible in case my rear tire gets caked in mud. I don't want there to be any sort of clearance issues or resistance on the rear wheel slowing me down or something like that. But besides that, we are almost done with this thing. So this bike feels a lot larger overall. It feels very tall. I like how far the handlebars are from my knees. The shock, the fork definitely feels a lot better than the stock one. You definitely feel like there's a good amount of resistance. There's none of that spring bind popping. Wow, definitely got some juice. The mini Enduro project is not fully finished yet. I'm actually gonna be taking out my KLX to some dirt trails this weekend, so stay tuned if you wanna see that. If you found today's video helpful in any way, do me a favor and hit that like button. And if you like this kind of content, wanna keep up with some of my projects, consider subscribing to my channel. But this is gonna be it for today. Thank you for watching.